Hello and welcome to Top Sim. My name is William Lebowski, and today rFactor 2 and sim racing fans woke up to shocking news this morning. It has been announced that the entire board of directors for Motorsport games have resigned due to disagreements about how funding is to be raised and how the plan would be dilutive to the stockholders. Panic has ensued, and on top of already plummeted stock prices, what could this mean for the struggling company? What implications will this have on rFactor 2 in the virtual Le Mans competition? And is this just part of the trend of games or series disappearing from the world like Project Cars? Or is it not at all surprising and something that people have seen coming from years away? As an avid fan of rFactor 2, following the sale of Studio 397 to Motorsport Games in May 2021, I heard the horror stories right away. Motorsport Games is owned by parent company Motorsport Network, the same people that have brought you Motorsports.tv and Motorsports.com news. The reputation about the company that has preceded any research done about the merger is not very positive. They have been known to grab titles and company that are in a place of peril and open to selling. The company becomes acquired on the cheap, and the resources that are of value are sold for a small cash flow, and then the rest of the existence of that company is milked for as much cash as possible before closing up its doors and plopping a new head onto a lifeless body. rFactor 2. This is not a new thing as it relates to how companies operate or acquire new properties. It's also not always a bad thing. There are many cases of new owners coming into underperforming companies and lifting them to the potential that they always had the ability to reach. So the mental image of what's happening here doesn't have to be one of the evil tycoon curling his mustache tips and smiling at the thought of milking some company for every single penny that it's worth. Let's take a step back and look at the big picture of all of this. Many people have been dubious about the merger right from the beginning, just as the news was announced and there hadn't even been enough time for anything to go wrong. But looking at the stock price, Motorsport Games has been in free fall since early 2021 and has spent all of 2022 pretty much flatlined at about 97% of what the price had been in the past. That is not a very good look. However, during this time of significant valuation drop-off, Motorsport Games has sold a lot of users on the future of rFactor 2 and on the platform as a whole, announcing things like a NASCAR title with rFactor 2 physics available on consoles, an officially licensed IndyCar title, an officially licensed British touring car title, and an officially licensed WEC simulation title, all coming from the robustly detailed rFactor 2 simulation engine. Have these steep costs for licenses and rights been a profitable move for the studio? Well, no, not yet at least, as this development will take time and intense execution. But has Motorsport Games done their due diligence to create these ecosystems, or have these properties just been developed enough to have purchasable content whose costs can be recouped in quarterly content drops, each one being similarly priced to the title itself? Where does that leave us now? On September 8th, Motorsport Games announced their financial restructuring program for 2022. The details of this plan were not announced to the public, but the goal of this program is to generate $4 million in annualized cost reductions by the end of 2023. This also included a $3 million cash advance to Motorsport Games through a pre-existing line of credit, and thirdly, a 1-for-10 reserve stock split. This received very little publicity at its announcement, and I wasn't even aware of it until I heard the most recent news about the board of directors' massive resignation. But it is important because it was done to regain compliance with NASDAQ's listing standards, meaning Motorsport Games was in danger of its stock becoming delisted and given an evaluation more worthless than it is already listed at, a danger that would have taken the company under, and this last-minute move allowed the company to maintain the standards needed to call itself a publicly traded company. This announcement also included a promise from CEO Dmitry Kozkov. Today's announcement represents an important and necessary and logical next step forward for Motorsport Games. With its increased liquidity and more efficient and streamlined business, we are taking steps to become a stronger, more financially sound organization while being in a better position to take on opportunities within the gaming industry and continuing to deliver for our key stakeholders and, most importantly, our deeply dedicated fans. That said, we recognize we have additional work to do in terms of reinforcing our liquidity for the long term. Here we have some worrying trouble as it relates to the very near future of the company, but still a commitment to the wonderful future that's possible with today's rFactor 2. Where's the problem? It sounds like the shark was successfully jumped, right? The problem comes from today's announcement. In 3 days from recording this video, on November 18th, Motorsport Games is announcing their third quarter earnings, a call for which TopSim has received access, and I think you can as well if you check out the link in the description below. But spoiler alert, here's the information. The board of the directors quit. There is $1.2 million in revenue and $7.5 million in net losses. Aside from embarrassment, what is the problem with the board of the directors quitting? Motorsport Games now has until December 29th to submit a plan to fill their board of directors and come up with the required 500,000 publicly traded stocks, or the company will be delisted. What's the solution here? Are you going to reverse split stocks that you just reverse split a couple weeks ago? This is what is going to make this Q3 earnings call very exciting. I have zero financial expertise, so my guess is as good as anyone else's who's just a fan of rFactor 2 and likes to keep up to date with its ongoings, but it's not looking good. What could Motorsport Games' plan have been? How terrible was it really? It has been stated that the resignation was not based on how Motorsport Games operated, practiced, or any of their policies, leaving only speculation about the reason that could have been from just one plan causing everybody to resign. Do I think that Motorsport Games will be able to fill the seats required to have a board of directors? Yes. This specific board of directors could be pooled from both gaming and motorsport spheres, leaving the options wide open when you consider how everyone would like to jump on the growing American motorsport genre. Do I think this will fill the 500,000 shares needed? No, but I don't think it has to. They just have to have a plan to make something happen. Hell, they don't even need to fill all those seats on the board by then. They just have to have a plan for how they're going to fill them. It doesn't have to be a good plan. It just has to be an accepted plan. Where does this leave Motorsport Games? Honestly, I think we might be looking at a sinking ship. It's not a good sign for a company already to be at the risk of being delisted so soon after fighting that first dragon off. Maybe this is too much of a pessimistic outlook, but we have seen that life for rFactor 2 costs more money than it makes, and that is the opposite of what a company is. But it sounds like a hell of a hobby, and just like every hobby, there are assets to be sold when you give it up. Studio 397 itself is a big one. The British Touring Car Championship game rights, the IndyCar game rights, and a phenomenal game engine are just some of them that remain in this scenario. But how will this shake down? Is there a future coming where rFactor 2 has to remove the BTCC content because it no longer owns those exclusive rights to have a virtual recreation of the series? I won't even begin to look into the future of what is being planned until after that third quarter earnings call. But allow me to make the case for Motorsport Games as it relates to rFactor 2 and the future success of the title as a frequent user and one who has spent their money on quarterly DLC drops. There have been actual value adds to rFactor 2 and actual signs of real improvement to the growing life and user base. The content drops have given a huge change to rFactor 2 by bringing BTCC cars and tracks, as well as fleshing out their traditional endurance base with a full LMP3 class, the unbalanced BMW M4 GT3, and tracks like Bahrain, Daytona, Laguna Seca, and a couple ovals. This not only took the current content to levels active users knew it was capable of, but also showed that this old dog can learn new tricks with the addition of the overwhelmingly successful BTCC DLC. This has also given platforms like LFM the ability to create new content and turn it into an ecosystem that gets enjoyed instead of adding it to the list of dead sim racing content. So if the plan was to put in as little to the title as possible so that the maximum value can be sucked out and the shell of a company can be sold for whatever value its remaining property rights are, this has been done exceptionally poor. The BTCC cars, IndyCar lineup of cars, and new laser-scanned track content have a high cost to introduce. Yes, it's easier when the rights were already acquired in a previous purchase, but it doesn't make the development and research to put those properties into a virtual form any cheaper. The investment to add brand new series and direction into rFactor 2 was costly. There is still money to be sucked out of the user base of rFactor 2, as everyone is still talking about how awesome these yearly content drops are. And the future of sim racing in esports and an amateur market for online sim racing is really just starting to grow. Does that mean Motorsport Games has more to milk out of rFactor 2, or does that mean they have an excellent platform to grow on? Only time will tell. But if for nothing more than the sake of the future of rFactor 2 and hopefully a future that involves rFactor 3, I certainly hope very, very good things for the current rFactor 2 state of problem. I hope that the board of directors gets filled quickly and that those 500,000 shares can be created very soon. Let me know what you guys are thinking about the current situation. I'm excited to see how dated this video will come as things move on and develop. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.